We're live. We are now live.
We are live.
And we have a guest. We have a guest. Well, I think it's on me to do the intro. So, hey, everyone. And Tom, we did start just quite
Tom
simply
Bolt,
because
we started just because you're here.
Just because you're here. Just because you're here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hear the People. A slight change on the title that we originally had, hence the cross out of talent. We are here for people. Anybody in that people space. Can I say people a little bit more? Maybe.
I thought you were going to say you're untalented people, and that's why you're having me on.
Not at all, Suzanne.
My God.
You are here to raise the bar, not lower it at all. At all, indeed. Well, Katrina, what are we talking about this week? I think.
We're going to talk about, that really annoying topic of quiet quitting and how I wish it would just go and die a death somewhere in the corner. But we had to have the evil HR lady herself, Suzanne Lucas, on because she is a talented person. I was going to say talented people then. Suzanne, thank you. And you did jump in last minute because poor Tracy Parsons has a scratch cornea. Ow. So she'll be on soon. Wow. So thank you for doing that because I think I messaged you at like 6 o'clock or something this morning. It was very early.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Welcome indeed.
For the people who actually don't know who you are you? What do you do? Tell us. Give us the story.
Well, I'm Suzanne and I am better known as the evil HR lady. And what do? I do a little bit of everything. Mostly I write and speak and train people about HR topics. I love to talk about all of that stuff and write about it and share it and help people be better. And that's mostly what I do.
A super positive people person. Thinking about, even though, like you say, the evil HR lady, I think that's a kind of almost play on ultimately how much positivity you do and how much of a positive impact you do have when you're genuinely working with teams and people. So just to point out to everybody that there is a twist of irony in that title, right?
Why did you call yourself evil? Yeah. Why did you come to that? How did you get there as well? What was your journey before? And then you suddenly became evil. Not evil.
Yeah. Yes. Well, my origin story.
Obviously, what's the accent? Because you don't live where your accent's from either.
No. I am from the Western U.S. So I grew up in Utah. That's where my accent is from. It's very bland. Like I'm like the nightly news American accent. Like,
yes,
calming.
That's me.
Calming.
Very calming.
Yeah,
I could be on NPR. Yes. Anyway, I was working in HR and I was working in a pharmaceutical company, and pharmaceutical companies are very conservative companies as a general rule. And my life's dream, and this is not even a joke, was to be an advice columnist. I grew up reading all of the in the newspapers. Yeah. And I just this was my life's dream. And blogging was brand new. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I can just be an advice columnist. I can just do it. Wow. And I just did it. I didn't think about it at all. I just did it. And I chose evil HR lady because I had to be anonymous because I was working for this super conservative industry. And while I'm 90% sure that my actual boss would have been okay with it, there were other people who would have not been okay with it at all. And so I had been reading another blog called The Evil Editor. And this was someone who was answering writers' questions.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, wait, that works for HR too, because what do people think of when they think of HR, right? They think you're evil. Yeah. If you get called into your boss's office.
Sorry, I probably just offended all my clients. Sorry.
No, it's true. I mean, of course, nowadays people get offended by truth, but that's another topic. But if you walk into the office to talk with your boss and the HR manager sitting there, you know it's not going to be a good conversation. That's already it. So I thought it fit really well with that.
Yep.
So I mean, when I say I just pulled this out of my hat, like I maybe spent 10 minutes trying to figure out how to start a blog and name it and do the whole thing all at once. And I'm so pleased with myself because that was the best marketing I could have ever done. It's so easy to remember.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So you didn't have that usual fear of writing and then publishing it online? Because I literally remember sitting there for about, I don't know, an hour before I hit publish, thinking that everybody would be sitting there and the entire internet going to read my post, which of course they're not.
What? What?
No.
Read your post?
No, it's like the tree falls in the forest and no one sees it.
No, because it was anonymous. It was 100% anonymous. And
so you just...
Yeah.
And I was naive enough back in 2006 to think that if it was anonymous, no one would ever find out who I was.
I love it. That's fair.
Now I understand that no matter how anonymous you want to be, if somebody wants to find out, they will find out.
100%.
So did you come out of the closet or were you forced out of the closet?
I came out. Came out of the closet. It sounds like a different topic.
Totally.
When in 2009, my husband got this job in Switzerland, and we moved, and I left my corporate job and came to Switzerland with him. Yeah. And CBS News reached out to me and said, "Hey, we need someone to write about HR. Would you like to work for us?" And I was like, "What? Someone will pay me to do this?" Like it had never happened to me that there was any money in this. And so at that point, since I wasn't working for anybody, I was unemployed. I was like, "Sure." And here's my name and my picture, and that's how it started. Yeah.
And the thing is, now, let's be fair, HR has so much more to deal with than traditional kind of HR, right? Hence back to that point around HR were usually brought in when there was disciplinaries, there were, kind of promotions, which is always a good thing. There's positive stuff in there, but related to promotions is always kind of obviously wage remuneration. And equally, HR always there in the disciplinary or exit process. But I think
which is pretty well that I only ever had any interaction with them.
Yeah, but the world of HR is it's so much more holistic now, isn't it? It's more, it's about people, that end-to-end journey of the people coming into the business. So, which links quite neatly into the topic that we're discussing, which is people already in a business that are thinking along the lines
phone's ringing.
Not mine. In terms of kind of thinking about. Well, on one side, quiet quitting may be looked at as, people essentially not working to their optimum, only delivering, working to their set hours, maybe not going over and above to essentially, kind of support colleagues or a project, etc. But equally on the flip side, it could be looked at as, well, people want work-life balance. Where do you sit on that spectrum, Suzanne?
Well, should we try and define quiet quitting?
Yeah, let's start there. That sounds even better.
It's a good question.
Where's that TikToker when we need her?
Right.
Yeah.
I tend to think of quiet quitting as just doing your job and nothing more. Other people are like, no, it's like doing the absolute bare minimum, but you're not meeting all of your requirements. You're just like trying to see how long you can go without getting fired. But I think that's called being a slacker. But I'd say that quiet quitting is more of that middle of, you know what, this is my job. It's not my life. I figured out that I'm not getting promoted. I'm not getting the accolades. I'm not going to get the super big bonus. So I'm just going to do my job and go home.
See, I have a different take on that. Well, a similar. Because about this whole, is this really new? No, and I commented this on your post actually on LinkedIn, Suzanne, because you wrote a wonderful blog about this, didn't you? That in when were we at the toxic toilet? Like 2006, 2007.
toxic toilet.
From a contract that said 9 to 5:30, and I was working 8:30 to 5:30 and regularly through lunch, I would hit my target every month, if not over. I was suddenly told that I had to work until 6 p.m., so an extra 2.5 hours a week for nothing. And I just went, no. And I used to work out at exactly 5:30. Whereas before I probably used to work back till 6. I actually started leaving at 5:30 on the dot every single day, because it was like, no, I am producing in the hours and you're not compensating me. You just want me to be present. So,
Right.
And again, so this isn't necessarily something new. I think it's got worse. I think people are like burning out. And that's why.
God,
But-
yeah.
I don't
There's
know.
so many
that's-
strands to it, isn't there? You know, kind of.
Yeah.
We were talking before we came on air around. Okay, is this a result of? You know, is it a result of post-pandemic? You know, the kind of contract between employer and employee is starting to be recalibrated, and people aren't necessarily quietly quitting. They just want ownership of the work that they're delivering, and they want to be respected for that particular work as per their job description, and they want life balance as well. But I sense that to your point, Suzanne, in so much as maybe depending on the audience, it's being repurposed, like quiet quitting. Oh, so you're quiet quitting on us now, are you? You're not doing your job. So I think, you know, and there's been so much blog content. I mean, if you type it into kind of Google, you just get a whole bunch of stuff around what the different definitions of quiet quitting.
Yeah.
Do you think, Suzanne, it's a generational reference, or do you think it's just always been there? It's just now being repackaged as quiet quitting?
I think it's always been there. I mean, like Katrina said when she was like, "No, you're not respecting what I'm doing for you," then no. That's always been there, but I think there's a couple of things going on. One, we have this really strong anti-work movement where people have this bizarre idea that nobody needs to work and that somehow all of us can just be artists. And that sounds great. But when your toilet breaks, you're going to want someone that works. I'm just saying. They don't have a clear logic thing going on there, but I'm going to get hate mail from the anti-work people, but that's okay. I've gotten hate mail before. And
well, you did call yourself evil HR. They feel that they're allowed to send you hate mail. It's like, she's evil. I can vent.
But we also have social media now. So before, in 2006, when Katrina was like, I'm just not going to do it, you just didn't stay.
Did it. Yeah.
And that's it. And now I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to post about it. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. And everybody else is going to talk about it. So I do think it's growing. And then I think you add to it, a lot of people are super, super, super angry at bosses that want them back in the office. And so you combine all those things together. You know, well, look, if you can't respect me and my performance that I did fine for 2 years sitting at home, 2 years I sat at home and I did fine. I met all my targets. And now you want me to come into the office?
There were companies that were more productive, like had higher profits during 2020 when everyone was at home. And then they wanted them all back in the office. Like that weird manager mentality of presenteeism is a bit very strange.
It's a bit strange. I do have a soft spot for it because I think new people coming into the workforce, it's difficult to get trained.
Yes.
But that's a different topic. We can talk about that.
No. I agree, though. I do think that there needs to be some time in the office, but it's the constant. So perhaps this is what is causing this. I think you make a very valid point with the social media. I mean, you know, as we know, oh my God, I haven't given a plug. Let's give it a shameless plug. Now it's released in the US, shameless plug, as well as the rest of the world. What do I talk about in here all the time? The internet. The internet was that big game changer. And again, this is one of those things where the internet's given people the confidence to see all of the other jobs that are out there. So they're more confident to push back because they don't have to stay. You know, if they've got skills that are in demand. as well. Can I just say, by the way, if you're on LinkedIn or Facebook, for some reason it's not letting me comment and say if you have any questions. On Crowdcast, I can see questions, so it's just frustrating. I can't. So, but feel free to ask any questions. I can see there's people there.
Yeah. Well, I think
LinkedIn's being LinkedIn.
Oh yeah. Debbie Easterday. Hey Debbie, makes a good point there. She's put, look, I think Gen Z has watched their parents adopt this hustle culture and benefit very little from these extreme efforts. Is that a reflection on the generation that's gone before, you know, with the whole kind of startup culture, extreme working methods, extreme working hours, you know, trying to build these businesses when, you know, general stat 9 out of 10 fail. It's kind of like, okay, surely if you're putting in that extreme effort, then there should be some incremental rewards. And if you don't get that, then why would you? So good point by Debbie. What's your thoughts on that, Suzanne?
Yeah, I think you're right. And for whatever reasons, companies put a gold star on your forehead within your first couple of weeks of working for them, or they don't. And if you get that gold star, no matter what you do, you're rising through the ranks. If you don't have that gold star, you can bust your buns and you're still not going to get promoted rapidly. You may get promoted eventually, but you're just on the normal track. And so if you're somebody that's been busting their buns, but you don't have that invisible gold star and you're not getting rewarded and you're seeing other people getting rewarded, yeah, why should I stay late?
Why did we start doing this? Because I'm actually thinking, admittedly, my parents are the silent generation. They had me late, by the way, if anyone's doing the maths. But they worked the hours. Like my mother worked 9 to 5 and she literally worked 9 to 5. And she had an hour off for lunch and she had morning and afternoon tea. And my dad worked his allotted hours. There wasn't. It's really interesting. Why did our generation then suddenly get this ridiculous hustle culture? What's wrong with us?
I don't know, but that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. My dad.
Oh, sorry, you can blame Glenn.
Self-employed, so I didn't see that. And my mom was a nurse, so they definitely worked specific hours. But
what did you say your dad did? I interrupted you.
Oh, I said my dad was. He owned his own business, so that's a different.
Right. Yeah.
But my father-in-law worked for Kodak, and
oh wow.
And this was in Rochester, New York, and there was Kodak and Xerox there.
Yeah.
Lots of companies at their height, right? Just hundreds of thousands of people there. And my mother-in-law used to talk about how she could set her watch by the coming and going of the men in the neighborhood because they would leave at a time and they would come home at a time. There was no working late. There wasn't. And this was working for Kodak.
And these work stayed at work. There wasn't this where you just pick your phone up and answer emails and do work at all hours.
It is. Yeah. And so what did happen?
What did we do? We didn't set boundaries. Because this is really what it comes down to, isn't it? Yeah. People are setting boundaries and they're just going, I'm producing in the hours what you've asked me to do. This is my boundary. So now I'm going to go and we didn't set boundaries.
No, we did not.
But we've got this all wrong. Fuck talking about quiet quitting. We should be talking about how Gen X were stupid. I'm sorry. I love us all, really.
Yeah. But, kind of technology advancement kind of allowed us to be more connected. And within that, more connected didn't just stop at your personal life, right? It's, businesses saw the use case for more connectivity with their employees, quicker, speedier communications. So it kind of almost become a natural progression under the guise of businesses progressing, and actually kind of keeping up with technology progression. So we adopted it because it was there and it made sense and it made our lives easier to do our jobs. And within that, we perhaps sacrificed to a degree a level of that boundary between work and life. And I think now, to your point, both your points actually, post-pandemic, what we've seen is, I think, obviously, individuals thinking about their mental health and well-being, right? 100%. Yeah. And to achieve that, they feel they need that kind of boundary between work and personal life. So quiet quitting could just be a simple subset of that. It's like, okay, I want to look after my mental health. What do I need to do and what I need to do is set that boundary, and not overwork, and for little or no reward.
Because it doesn't matter if that email waits or that SMS waits, or that we've become this instant response society as well, haven't we? So.
Well, and we put pressure on ourselves that doesn't actually exist. And, if you want to talk about stories from 2006 or whatever, at that point, I had, I'm not sure what year it was, but in that same time period, I had a new boss. And for her, everything was an emergency. And so she would call me into her office at 4:30 or whatever and say, oh my gosh, we need this, this, and this right now. And so I would stay late and I would get it done. And the corporate email system, you could see when people opened emails. And so I would send it off to whoever, and it would just sit in their inbox for days. And so she would tell me, we need this, this, and this, and this. And instead of immediately doing it, I would go call, I guess it was always this is for the VP of HR, she needs this. I would call the VP of HR's admin and say, hey, Lois, this is Suzanne. When does Denise need this? And she would give me the actual date. And it was always 3 or 4 days later. And I'd say, okay, great. And then I went home on time. But my boss was always in this complete stressed out situation, but she made it herself. She absolutely made it herself.
And that comes from the fear of being found out, the insecurity, the out of her depth. It'll have come from some insecurity back there somewhere, won't it, that she wasn't dealing with? Because we're all humans, aren't we?
We are all humans.
But for you, so what you did was you quite quit. If we're going to use the current definition, is you worked it out. Actually, I don't need to panic. I can leave on time and still get this done, and nobody will be upset.
Yeah.
So you just delivered in the hours.
And absolutely. And you know what? It was fine. It was fine. But it drove her crazy. And it was shortly thereafter that my position was transferred to another department. And I think that's probably why, is that
she couldn't control you.
She couldn't control me. And it turned out to be much better because my boss in the department,
actually felt, as you said it, I felt relief. I felt your stress go as you got transferred. I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it? By the way, I just don't want to miss this comment. Tom Bolt has written, this is not new. In 1911, Frederick Taylor used the term soldiering on to describe this phenomenon.
There you go.
Thank you, Tom. Feel the need to Google that now.
If we're saying, and some of the commentary about quiet quitting just says it's kind of repackaging of disengagement, repackaging of people just basically getting bored of their jobs and looking to move on, so they're just working to rule, etc. I guess for me it's kind of like, if you're just doing the confines of your job, if you're just delivering against your core deliverables, well, that's not quite quitting. That's just doing your job, isn't it? And it's the onus is on your employer to kind of understand what's going to motivate you, and equally what's fair to ask. If we're defining over and above your standard kind of role and responsibilities, what's fair to ask of you that you will in return get reward, promotion, learning, training, development, etc. Surely there's that, because we're concentrating a lot on the employee at the moment, like quiet quitting, working to role, etc., etc. But there's a responsibility of the employer here to kind of understand this phenomenon, understand what's going on, understand post-pandemic why there's high levels of disengagement, etc., and try and figure out a way to rebalance that kind of that contract between employer and employee so it's fair. No, surely. Yeah.
I mean, this is what is annoying me. They're passing the responsibility for employee engagement to the employee.
I just have to throw in, there's a comment from Debbie, and she says, apparently in the military, they've always used the term ROAD, retired on active duty warrior. Someone shared that on a comment to one of my other posts recently. I like that, retired on active duty. But they're looking for the employee to take on new things. Instead of being honest in your job description, if we want to go back to talent acquisition, be honest. Say, look, I expect you to do this, 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 and this, and come up with new ideas or whatever. Say it in the job description. Don't hire me as your accounts payable manager and then get mad when I'm not running payroll too. You know?
Yeah. So that goes back to hiring manager education, doesn't it? Yanni has put the most incredible question over there on Facebook. When we talk about juniors or entry-level roles, how will the what are we calling this? Sorry, quiet quitting.
Yes.
When we talk about juniors or entry-level roles, how will the quiet quitting culture? My God, Yanni, that's really hard to say. How will the quiet quitting culture impact their professional development in the long term? So when we talk about juniors or entry-level roles, how will the quiet quitting culture impact their professional development in the long term? Ooh,
big question.
I think they're going to have different goals. I think that they're going to be much more about work-life balance and productivity at the time and working in flow. And I think they're going to show us what we should have always been doing. I could be wrong.
Well, I also think that there are, just because there are quiet quitters, there are still those people out there that are more than willing to work the long hours and chase that brass ring. Those people didn't go away. They're still there. I think the problem becomes when someone who just wants to work 9 to 5 gets angry because the guy working 7 to 7 is being promoted and rewarded. It's just, you got to make a choice. Accept it. You know what? I'm an accounts payable manager. I'm going to be the accounts payable manager till I die. Good with that.
Yeah.
But if I want to work out to be the head of accounting, then I need to put in some more effort.
But maybe still within your hours, because I mean, if I go back to toxic toilet and my earlier example of being asked to stay back, the people that stayed back from where I was sitting in the back corner, I could see they were just playing internet games. They were present, but they weren't working. They switched off at 5:30, just like I did. And it was just like it was seen that they were there, because they would sit there playing games and surfing the internet and whatever until 7 p.m. and then they'd go, which is just a crazy waste of a life. But interesting. Was Debbie? Do you want to
Debbie's
read
gone.
that, or have you got a question?
No, Debbie's gone strong there on that comment. So something along. So they will be among peers with a shared mindset. So I think that's in relation to the kind of entry level individuals we were just talking about. I think the hustlers are suckers. Many workers no longer respect the hardworking colleagues. They make fun of them. Controversial, but I like it. What's your take on that, Suzanne? Do you think hard workers are seen as, kind of ultimately striving for benefits they'll never actually receive or realize?
How you can read text speak, and I read that differently to how you read it, and the tone that you've put is different to what I know Debbie will have meant.
Oh,
but
no, I know
they're not
that.
saying they won't produce in their hours. They're just saying they won't work all the hours that God sends to produce. It's
absolutely. But I repurpose that to be, provocative, basically. Yeah. I know. Yeah, Debbie wouldn't have meant it like that at all. But thanks for the tee up, Debbie.
Tom Bolt, future leaders won't worry about peer pressure. Yeah, good for them.
I don't know if I buy that, because it's not everybody. It's certainly not everybody that's doing this. There are still a lot of people that are doing the long hours and who aren't just doing the presenteeism long hours. Heaven knows there are those too, but there are people that are working and have goals that they really want to achieve, and they're chasing it. Those people aren't going away. I just think that the people that aren't are louder now. And I think it's because the internet is
social media.
Them. Whereas before, I'm just not going to do it. And you went home and...
So what advice would you have for leaders? Because if we think about, actually, if the internet's making, again, everything I talk about all the time, it's giving people a platform, so it's making it harder to recruit, but it's also making it hard to retain. What's your advice for leaders? Like, if you put your nice HR hat on?
Honestly, this is something that I like to remind leaders. You're just average. Your company's average. You're an average employer. I mean, there's somebody out there that's amazing, but it's not you. And if you think it's you, then it's definitely not you. Because people that are amazing tend to see the things that they can improve on. So if you think you can improve, it's not you. And so because you're average, your company is average, why do you expect your employees to be anything but average?
Yeah.
And so if you have people that come to work every day or work from home every day, whatever you want to call it, and do their jobs and are successful at their jobs, you should be thrilled beyond belief. And the other thing I like to remind leaders is that every parent thinks their baby is the most beautiful baby ever to be born. Some babies, and I have seen them, one of my friends, her babies all look like troll dolls. Do you remember those from the 80s?
You have not said that to her. Please don't be watching.
No, I've never said it to her.
Okay.
But
she's not a Facebook friend, I hope.
I think your youngest is like 18, so
okay.
There's just that. But every time you see a picture, you're like, oh, so cute. Some babies are ugly, and they are. Sorry, they are. Some are. Most are cute, but some are terribly ugly. Businesses are like that too. So business owners, they tend to think this is the best thing ever. Why are you not sacrificing yourself for my company? It's not good to me. It's a job.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, actually. I mean, just for the three of us who all work for ourselves, and Glenn's the only one. Glenn's the only one with staff. I mean, it's because I'm not prepared to hand my baby over to anybody, and Glenn's just discovered what it's like to have two gorgeous employees and what that feels like. And I can understand what the baby element and that it's but no, they are, at the end of the day, they are employees that you have paid to do a job. And we can't expect them to love it the way we love our businesses.
So that does link actually into the interview process and that question around, and sometimes that feedback a hiring manager and or co-founder founder will give, they didn't seem passionate about our product or service or business. And the question I always float back is, are they ever going to meet that level of passion that you have for your business? Probably not. And it's the same sort of scenario, right? It's like, yes, you're in a, maybe you're in a kind of senior leader position. You have more vested interest in the business. You're super passionate about it. You can see your career path. You can see your trajectory. Some of your team members may not have that visibility. So, and that will impact their passion and drive and motivation, surely. So again, it comes back to the employer, what the responsibility they have to address, and as Tom puts it there, quiet quitting, TikTok like, topic, it may disappear, but engagement, with employee engagement will not. It's a consistent thing. It's always there and something you always need to be mindful of. And how are you going to mitigate it? And I think just one final point to link to the pandemic, where everybody was working remotely. Let's be fair, there was probably a whole bunch of leaders out there that were absolutely crap at leading people remotely. So therefore, they probably had one metric that they were focusing on in terms of performance. And these employees were doing a whole bunch of other stuff, or they felt like they were doing a whole load of other stuff that was really contributing. But yet the leader was just coming back to this one metric as a kind of determining factor as to whether they've been working or not, or just sitting at home watching TV. And then post-pandemic, you just have this like, oh, what was the point? Through probably one of the toughest periods, these people have experienced in their employment lives. They've given 100%. They've really, turned in and turned up every day. And in post-pandemic, all they're getting is, oh, yeah, well, you're lucky to keep your job. And by the way, do you want to come back to the office?
Right.
5 days a week.
Yeah, I think that really has a lot to do with it.
I feel like you needed to say that.
Oh, God, yeah.
But that's also why senior leadership often gets stock options. and such, because what we're saying is adopt a small part of my baby here.
Yeah.
And then you'll become as passionate about it as I am, because it's yours as well.
Your baby.
It's your baby.
Yeah.
But if I don't have a good portion of stock in a company,
it's a job.
It's
with a potential career pathway that will lead me to something else. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the younger you are, the more you realize that no company loves you, that they may praise you, they may give you a promotion, they may pay you a great wage, but if something happens and they have some financial need, out the door. There is no one even in Gen X has the concept of this is my career for life. Like I'm going to be, like I said earlier with my father-in-law who worked at Kodak. When he worked at Kodak, that's what you did. You worked at Kodak.
Yeah.
And you worked there your entire, he did.
Yeah.
He went to Kodak like 5 years after he finished graduate school, and he stayed there till he retired. What he did.
My uncle Rob worked at the ANZ Bank for 30-something years. Oh, the way they treated him at the end was so bad. Because we'd started the hustle culture, hadn't we?
Yeah.
But he was shat all over from a great height. And actually, again, he's in the book randomly. But it's just agree. People won't do that. I think there's that lower tolerance. I think people will just move on as well. You've got to be more concerned about your retention than the people that are just working the hours and are still delivering.
I got another view with entry level graduate level jobs, right? So that the stats show that there are far more people graduating from education and less entry level graduation jobs, right? And those jobs typically are pretty crap pay, right? So if you've been educated, you can only get an entry level job with crap pay. Why would you be motivated to work over and above? Because there's always that emphasis, isn't it? Oh, if you join a business, you've really got to show your enthusiasm, your motivation, even though you're probably living, say for instance, you're living in central London, 50% of your wage is absorbed by basically travel and accommodation. And oh, by the way, there's a little thing that we're calling a cost of living crisis as well. Welcome to the world of work, folks.
Well, that's the latest fad, isn't it? Besides this one, obviously, because we're totally trending on Twitter with this topic. But the cost of living crisis is going to get everyone back in the office Monday to Friday. Like, dream on.
Yeah.
Don't think it's going to do that. They're still trying to sort the rich landlords. But yeah. Anyway, you had a question that I just took off topic. Sorry, Suzanne.
No. That the whole it's going to cost you too much in electricity to work at home, so you're going to go into the office. I
mean, who has thought of that? Probably somebody from Goldman Sachs who wants all of their staff back in the office, right?
Probably that person.
Agreed. Yeah. I did especially like the one though, and I did totally mock it, but the whole if you run, cycle, or what was it? Run, cycle, or walk, wasn't it? Into London in January. You can save 50 quid a week or something. It's like, I'm sorry. Wow. Have you been in London in January?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Plus, it's 45 minutes on the train from London to London for me. So, yeah. Anyway, sorry, I've gone off topic.
Do you
just throw that in?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so with this kind of employee engagement piece, Suzanne, and you must have seen this with multiple companies that you kind of work with, engage with. Have you seen a really, really great example of a business continually kind of addressing, changing, thinking about employee engagement? Because we've seen articles like, I can't remember the name of the guy that basically in the US, he paid all of his team members the same money, didn't he?
But you do realize he's being sued at the moment for something.
He is indeed, yeah. So that was a tag on. But, look, he's an example of trying to find ways of fairness, transparency, that sort of thing. He's trying to address, team employee engagement. Have you seen any really good examples of that yourself?
There are some really good examples of that. My favorite example, in full disclosure, I used to work there, is a grocery store chain in the US called Wegmans. And it's freakishly amazing. And That's why I don't go to America to visit my family. I go to the grocery store. But they all know. But they are constantly looking at how to make things better for their employees. And one of the things that they do as a grocery store, of course, people have to come in. They're it's not a work from home kind of a deal.
Yeah.
And everybody in the corporate office has to work in the stores from time to time. At Christmas, it's very all hands on deck. And everybody gets trained, and you don't rise to a senior management position until you have managed a store.
So
love it. HR, accounting, marketing, doesn't matter. You get your butt into the store. And because of that, everybody in a senior role knows what it's like to stand on their feet.
Empathy and compassion.
To deal with the angry customer. I remember when I was doing my store rotation, I was a corporate HR person, and I was in the store, and they put me on a cash register without any training because I just you can figure it out. And so I'm trying to figure out the buttons. And this woman says to me, she reads my name tag, and she says, "So Suzanne, do you like your job?" And I was just like, "Yes, I do. Thank you." But she was just so snotty and so condescending.
Patronizing.
And I was like, "I've been on this cash register for 5 minutes. Okay, give me a break."
I don't know the buttons yet.
I don't know what the buttons are. Yeah, but they're a shiny
brilliant
example of that. But then we see companies that peaked and are crashing, like Facebook. I think peaked with their employees a long time ago, and now they are. And you have Zuckerberg being like, "We're going to fire you if you're not doing a good enough job." Well, of course they are. They're always going to fire you if you aren't doing a good enough job. But now it's vocal, and you're having companies pulling back things. And that's the other thing that was the unspoken thing, is that all those perks and benefits that Silicon Valley was given, that wasn't because they loved their employees. That was because they didn't want you to go home. If they had dinner available, then you'd work later.
Yeah. Can I just quickly interject that Pamela Eliva, I didn't pronounce that correctly. I'm enjoying this talk, guys. Quiet quitting is a real thing, and it's happening all over the world. Just throwing that in. Thank you.
Cool.
That's over on LinkedIn.
So is there the counter narrative to quiet quitting now, with recession, investor money being pulled back? You need to be grateful for your job again.
No.
Is there a kind of almost, because I see this developing.
What recession? Stop it. Stop talking us into a recession.
But that's the point, right? The counter narrative around, okay, if quiet quitting is the employee narrative, the employer counter narrative is there's a recession coming.
That's because the patriarchy is falling, and they're like clinging on by their fingernails as it's falling. And it's like all of this is just that, all of it, all of the other stuff I'm not going to mention because I don't want to go down the Texas rabbit hole thingo.
Yeah.
But that's.
Or is this just all noise, Suzanne, and Katrina and I are just completely bought into our social media feeds too much?
Not at all. What are you talking about?
I'm hearing you guys are more dialed into the recruiting world, of course, than I am. But I'm still seeing candidates coming in being very confident with high demands and not putting up with crap. And that tells me that employees aren't concerned about it yet. Are senior leadership people concerned about it? Quite possibly. But, we talk about labor shortages, but labor shortages exist in only very specific fields. And actually, it's been very interesting to me because I'm an American who lives in Switzerland, and I keep an eye on things everywhere. And of course, right now there's a huge teacher shortage in both countries. And how teachers are treated in Switzerland versus the US could not be more different. Teachers in Switzerland get paid very well. They have all these supports that they need. They're very respected, blah, blah, blah. In the US, they make crap wages. They're kowtowing to weird parental demands. Like, they could not be more different. And yet both countries are having teacher shortages. So I'm like, there's something more going on here than what we want to blame people for, because they could not be more different. And so, yeah, there's a teacher shortage in 2 countries. There, it's an employee market. But if you want to apply for an HR job, a professional level HR job, that market is flooded. There's far more people looking than there are hiring. I look at jobs, and it'll say on LinkedIn how many people have applied, and it'll be like 300 people have applied to this role already, and it's like, you just posted it yesterday. So don't tell me that there's a talent shortage, but still the people that are getting the interviews are still going in with
I'm not sure I believe those numbers out of LinkedIn, but anyway.
That's fair enough.
There's 300 people who aren't suitable and don't have visas to work in the country, perhaps. But sorry. Wow, did I say that out loud?
There is that.
Yeah.
Well, it's possible, though. That's all. I'm just always a bit. But yeah, no. Though I do agree with what you're saying, because I always have on the healthcare sector, tech sector kind of hat when I'm thinking about a lot of these things. But I think if we were thinking like knowledge workers in general, who are quite savvy on the old internet now, I think they do feel really confident. But I think what I'm seeing is people being let go, but getting a job very quickly. And if you compare that to 2020, that didn't happen.
Right.
And that's the bit where I get, can we please stop? Yeah, we have zero growth at the moment. I get it's all out of control, but don't scare people into not spending money. That's what will cause the recession. And that's the bit I get frustrated with. Or you see a company downsizes 900 staff, but they've got 15,000. And it's like all they focus on is the number, not actually that's 1% or whatever it is. It's not 1%.
Yeah, that's true.
Whatever the maths is.
Post-pandemic as well, though, I think there's a lot more, the individuals that were kind of almost forced into the labour market during the pandemic. So whether it be furlough to kind of redundancy or straightforward redundancy, and businesses scale back, they typically scale back any support functions, right? So HR, finance, talent acquisition, et cetera, even ops, customer support. Yeah. Those people went into the market, and now these companies realize, well, actually, we do need those people and those teams to scale back up and start to kind of, function again. What's happening now is, to your point, Suzanne, individuals looking for jobs now are far more selective. They have far more demands. They want to know a lot more around how you treated your people during the kind of the pandemic. And I think that's driving up kind of competition. If you're an employer, it's a really competitive market. If you're an individual looking for an opportunity, good times for you.
Yeah, I think in the most cases there are, although as I said, there's fields where it's not. It's not. It's true. But the candidates are still going in with confidence and still won't put up with the crap that they put up with before. And people are nowhere near as scared of having short-term jobs on their resumes as they used to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that used to be the worst, didn't it?
This job for 5 years, so it looks good on my resume. If I don't like it, I'm out of there in 6 months.
That goes back to the hustle culture. Circling it back, because it used to be like, oh, you only lasted 6 months, there must be something wrong with you. So yes, no, we're not going to hire you. And you'd end up in a really shitty position. And that goes back to our attitude. And actually, it's definitely changed. Matthew Cigar's written something over here. I wish it was following Katrina, but look what happened in 2008. Nothing has changed. CEO pay is still off the scale. I think it depends entirely on your skills. Not quite sure what that related to. We were talking about. I think that goes back to the people with skills in demand. You might have to. I'm struggling to see the LinkedIn comments. You literally come over to. It's so much better over here at Crowdcast. I can't even post the link.
Yeah, I mean,
LinkedIn's not letting me comment or anything today. It's quite odd.
Strange, but Tom's point there, many people are choosing gig work rather than full-time employment, which is true, right? I mean, it's I think the portfolio career, which has often been talked about, is becoming more and more acceptable.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like, yeah, go Suzanne, yeah.
Yeah, and the U.S. is trying to stamp that out. There's currently legislation in Congress that will essentially destroy gig workers. And that's also a topic for another thing, but
yeah,
it's very pro-union.
So when we're talking gig, are we talking about like what we do, where we
Right,
have
like what
lots
we
of
do
different countries, actually companies in different countries, clients, and or are we talking about Uber drivers?
We're talking about people like us. Uber drivers, definitely. I mean, the goal is always
Fiverr, people on Fiverr.
You know, that's always been the goal. Everybody hates Uber. That's what we're trying to destroy Uber. We want to make the Uber drivers employees. Got it. But it's making it far more widespread. So someone like me who makes the bulk of my income comes from writing articles. All right. I do that as an independent contractor. I write for Inc. magazine, but I'm not an Inc. employee. But if this legislation passes, one of the requirements for being an independent contractor is that you have to do work that isn't the business's primary function. So their primary function is as a magazine. Does that mean all of the writers have to be employees instead of contractors? Now I can continue to write
See, this goes back to the patriarchy falling, and they're trying to control people.
They're trying to control it, and I don't know if I'd call it the patriarchy falling, but definitely there's this attempt to control. I don't want to be an employee.
It is. It's an attempt to control, because you can choose to do that work or not do that work. And I know that you fired clients, right? We've all done, actually, all three of us have done that. And that's why we actually choose to be I've never really thought of myself as a gig worker. I totally am as well. To me, I'm just me, but but it is that I do different work for different people. And it's like, why can't we? Oh, because we can't be controlled. Yeah. It takes away creativity as well.
Yeah. And 100%. So as Tom said, people are choosing this gig work, but now we have these forces pushing back saying you can't have that gig work. And I'm like, but this gig work pays my bills and gives me the flexibility to deal with my family,
children,
children, and
care for an elderly relative. Yeah.
And to teach improv classes on the side because I love it. So it's like,
and she does it very well. Occasionally she shares a video. By the way, Ashley Cooper has written a great a comment here. Often it's how people present those tenures on their resume. So I think we're talking about the short, very true. Actually, it's about how you present them.
Yeah, storytelling, right? Yeah, I was just going to say it is storytelling. But just on that final point, it kind of nicely links back to the quiet quitting piece, where I think people want to choose, to not have to work long work days, to not have to work overtime that's unpaid, to not essentially, kind of have that always on presenteeism. And it comes back to, I think it really does keep resonating with me. It just comes back to choice, right? A fair exchange of labor for pay and recognition. And that's a two-way thing. And whilst, quiet quitting seems to be a bit of a, a kind of talking point at the moment, it doesn't seem to me to be anything new. It's just the desire for fairness, right?
Yeah. And balance.
Yeah. And then feeding into,
I'm pretty sure I stole this. I'm pretty sure I stole this from Suzanne anyway, and I've quoted her many times.
Good.
She said it is, we've gone from like when we all started out, that employer, be grateful you have a job, to employer, be grateful you have employees.
Yeah.
Like we've swung so far that actually I just don't think the employers have caught up and the employees have. And that goes back to the internet, giving people the power by being able to see and talk. And
I mean, just
you
think about the incredible power people have that they didn't used to. I mean, it used to be that if you wanted a statement from someone that worked at a company, you could only get the PR person. That was it. That was the only person. And you as a reporter had to go there and interview that one person. Now, I can do a quick Google search and find videos and tweets and Reddit posts about anything I want to find. It's out there.
Yeah.
I love, again, oh God, I'm really plugging my book, but seeing I donated my royalties to charity, I don't mind. Please buy 5. Just in case you've missed it, it's this one, Anyway, but I talk in there about a gentleman who was working at a company whose name you would absolutely know, but I'm not going to say it on air. And he went there, and they were very diverse, very accepting. He felt very included, and it changed once he started working there, and he got passed over for promotions, became very homophobic, and on it went. And he wrote a blog on LinkedIn, and then he wrote a follow-up blog on LinkedIn, and his current employer cheered him on. And it was just like there was no fear. He had no fear about the repercussions of that, and we would not have done that when we started our careers. And that's such a huge change. But companies just don't believe it. They're just not there yet. They don't realize the power of this wonderful tool that we're communicating with right now.
No, and they're shocked. Every time it happens, they're shocked. They're shocked. I had a really amusing thing happen. I wrote an article about this hospital CEO that sent out a list of money-saving tips rather than, address the inflation concerns. And she's like, look in your pantry, see if you have some canned fruit back there. Okay. It was so tone deaf. And before I published it, I did this on a Monday. I called. I left a voicemail for their PR people. I sent 2 emails, one to the email address that was on the voicemail and one that was on their website. And they didn't respond to me. They just let it go. I did that Monday. I published the article on Thursday. So I just want to be clear. They had plenty of time to respond. It went viral. I got nasty gram from the PR. I've never gotten an email like that before. Just, you are so unprofessional. Why didn't you get our side of things? And I was like,
because you ignored me.
I did. And he said, I tried to call you Tuesday on your foreign number, but it didn't work. I'm like, my foreign number works just fine. That was a you problem.
You have to do 00 first before you.
Americans don't know how to make foreign calls.
They don't. I agree.
I became an expat. I didn't know either.
I know. It's amazing.
But they didn't know how to do it. And I was like, well, so clearly now you know that you had my information at least on Tuesday. Why did you choose not to email me? You could have, you made this choice. But I think that they were just convinced if we don't say anything, it'll go away.
It doesn't. It ends up on a glass door of you.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're running out of time, which is really sad because I sense that we could easily talk about this for another 3 hours. However, some of us probably, even those listening. Thank you, by the way. We've had so many people tuning in all over the place.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Probably they need to go and do some work there, to make sure that they're not quite quitting. Suzanne, if people want to come and stalk you now that you're out of the closet, evil HR is. What's the best?
You can follow my website, which is evilhrlady.org, or find me on LinkedIn, Suzanne Lucas, or you can, if you are an HR recruiting person or you manage people, you can join my Facebook group, which is called Evil HR Lady, but you have to answer all the questions, because if you don't answer all the questions, we won't let you in.
Yes.
Or you can follow me on Twitter, Real Evil HR Lady on Twitter. So
or Instagram. You kind of use that.
Once every blue moon, I'll post a picture of something myself.
You got tagged earlier.
So Tom dropped your Facebook group into the chat earlier, which is kind of I've just dropped your LinkedIn page into the chat as well.
And then I'll make sure they're on LinkedIn and Facebook as well, and YouTube. Actually, this has gone out all over the place.
Awesome.
Thank you, one and all. What an amazing conversation. Huge
Thanks
topic.
for having me.
Yeah.
I don't think
Thank you, Suzanne.
Other than
you're amazing.
Employers, get on with it.
Yeah.
You are amazing, and she's not at all evil, is she?
I don't think she's that evil, to be fair.
I think we need a LinkedIn poll. Is Suzanne Lucas evil? Yes, no.
Ask my ex-husband. He'll say yes.
He's slightly biased. Right. Well, you don't think you are. And thank you so much for your expertise and your time and jumping in last minute. And Tracy, get better. Thank you. 100%. Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Bye.